Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwan, and today we're going to be talking about the Skitarii. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day, and if you have any suggestions, please comment down below. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Skitarii. The Skitarii are the bionic heart of the Adeptus Mechanicus legions. Their tireless legions defend the forge worlds of the Imperium, annihilate the enemies of the tech priests, and fight at the vanguard of the quest for knowledge. As the technocracy of the cult Mechanicus extends its reach into the stars, the cybernetic Skitarii are always there at the forefront. Underneath their augmented battleware, the warriors that are the Skitarii are still technically humans. Yet each has been mutilated, dismembered, and extensively rebuilt to better serve the Omnissiah's will. Their manifold augmentation ensures not only their lethality, but also their utmost obedience. Neurosonic implants allow the strictly ordered Skitarii cohorts to fight in perfect unison, each maniple permanently uplinked to their master via invisible streams of information. To compare a maniple of Skitarii to a platoon of Imperial Guardsmen is to compare a well-oiled Gatling gun to a simple iron hammer. The Skitarii do not simply crush their foes, instead they ruthlessly blast them into bloody chunks of flesh. Every bit of data gathered from their enemies is captured for further analysis. Just as the Skitarii upload the martial strength of their foes to their masters, the tech priests download their own programs into the Skitarii. It is a usual practice for a legion's overseer tech priest to monitor each battle from a ship high above. Floating in a sea of data, each adept sends battlefield commands down via a data tether to the Skitarii on the planet below. In this way, their soldiers can be remotely augmented, used as eyepieces, forced into suicidal engagements, or even possessed entirely. The devout Skitarii see these moments as the divine spirit of the Omnissiah entering inside them and acting through them to the betterment of the Imperium. To the tech priest, their minions are little more than electric puppets jerking upon strings of pre-programmed impulse. The Skitarii seek to grow ever closer to the machine god by augmenting their bodies with wholly indomitable metal. Each new wound is a chance for a bionic revelation. Such is their fanaticism that even healthy organs and body parts are cut away and replaced. To face a Skitarii legion is to fight against warriors that are less human and yet far more deadly. As with so much of the cult Mechanicus business, the truth of the Skitarii's creation is a close-kept secret. Most Skitarii are born into the service of the Mechanicus, either as natural-born human menials of the cult Mechanicus, who are cybernetically enhanced specialized to serve as Skitarii, or they are genetically engineered clones, or vat-born humans who are cybernetically enhanced from the moment of their accelerated birth, much like certain types of servitors. Others are repurposed from mind-wiped convicts or warriors handed over as punishment for failure or desertion. Unlike these cybernetic menials, most vat-born Skitarii are allowed to retain at least a small portion of their higher brain functions, so that they can follow the more complex orders often given on the battlefield. Regardless of origin, all find a fanatical faith in the Omnissiah soon after their inception. It is then that their true transformation begins. Without exception, the Skitarii have a pallid body of wrinkled flesh and stitched up cybernetics. Ceramic valves and adamantium sockets stud hard knots of pallid translucent muscle. Even the brains of these warriors are grotesque hybrids of gray matter and twisting neural circuitry. The ones believed to be the most blessed pass a point called the Crus Mechanicus, where their bodies are more machine than flesh. Those that reach this stage of mechanomorphism are known as Skitarii Alphas. Some go on to attain the rank of Alpha Primus, overseers who can operate independently for standard years if necessary, as solid and reliable as the titanium that replaces their flesh. One who looks for consistency in Skitarii augmentation would be sorely disappointed. A soldier of the Mechanicus may have a punctured skull slot and lethal bellows of lungs, while at the same time housing quantum bioware in their brain. It is often said that were one of these enhanced warriors to be rendered down, traces of nearly every element known to man could be found somewhere in their remains. The tech priests know this to be no exaggeration, for dissection is but one of the dark fates a Skitarii might undergo in order to satisfy his master's predatory curiosity, and how else would their master know how to better augment their next cybernetic slave? Skitarii train with their integrated cybernetic weapons until they are of the appropriate age to be sent into a war zone. To guarantee their undying loyalty to the adept of Mars, all Skitarii undergo various forms of psychosurgery. Some have their minds wiped of both emotions and personality, and are implanted with mental directives designed to ensure that they follow the order of their commanding tech priests, or magos, without question, even to the point of being essentially remotely controlled. Other Skitarii are allowed to retain a certain degree of personality, although their defining traits will always be belligerence and the desire to fight. Skitarii undergo genetic enhancement programs that develop strength and aggression, and are physically and cybernetically augmented to further these traits. During combat, the Tech Guard go into a hormone-induced rage, and likely become addicted to the adrenal high that close combat delivers. Despite this, however, the Skitarii, particularly their commanders, are neurally modified so that the analytical parts of their brains remain a bastion of calm amidst a storm of wrath, allowing them to quickly evaluate the tactical and strategic situations and then act accordingly. Along with their ability to understand binary code, which can be nearly instantaneously sent, received, and understood by the Skitarii's augmented cerebral cortices, this allows them to operate with a remarkable degree of cooperation, and something all the more stunning to be seen in a seemingly ragtag, raging horde. Like all the adepts of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Skitarii are experts at multitasking, and a Tech Guard officer can, for example, effortlessly engage in vicious close combat, direct the forces under his command, oversee the tactical situation of a battle, and provide coordination for the artillery detachments, all at the same time. Due to their extensive modification, the Skitarii can excel in almost any environment. Each legion hails from a hyper-industrialized forge world. Extreme doses of radiation are nothing to those who have trodden the toxic wastes of Mars. Even in the time-ravaged fringes of the Halo Star, the Skitarii legions march onward. They have painstakingly conquered worlds across the breadth of the galaxy, and whatever peril they face, they march, faltered not. The Skitarii are organized into war hordes, capable of overcoming any foe. They work in glorious concert, every footstep or twitch of the trigger finger optimized to further the cause of the Cult Mechanicus. The mission of the Skitarii is to steal enlightenment from the galaxy and impose order in its place. Yet for all the flaunted objectivity, the logic of the Cult Mechanicus, for all the cybernetic replacements they embrace, the tech priests are still driven by human emotion and desire. Their war hordes are just as often sent to battle as part of a private agenda as they are to further the Omnissiah's cause. The Skitarii themselves do not care. They fear neither the monster nor the fiend. For them, it is enough to serve the Omnissiah's will, as is sponged by their holy prophets. Even in death, they offer sacred data to their invisible master high above. In return, they receive doctrinal sacrament with every new day of war, and they are grateful for it. Those who feel the bliss of the Omnissiah's touch will fight like lions, every shot or blow calibrated for maximum lethality. Though such individuals usually go to the Great Maker soon afterwards, those that survive are treated as saints amongst their war hordes. Cyborg warriors that command the Skitarii cohorts passed the Crus Mechanicus long ago. Some are little more than a fleshy head, stitched to a mechanical body. But from the most basic alpha to the most vaunted Sicarian princeps, they are all worthy of respect. The war forms of the Skitarii leaders are typically compact, though each is possessed of inhuman strength and endurance. Those that have come through the vanguard are so heavily irradiated that the ground becomes barren in their footsteps. Only with regular visits to rad cleanser chambers can they be kept from slowly devolving into gruesome black smush. Those that hail from the ranks of the Rangers have a taste of their master's omniscience, and the paranoia to go with it. Those hailing from night worlds, typically young nobles who have failed the ritual of becoming, are physically indomitable, but have their brains implanted with motive selectors and memory catheters to keep their rage in check. Skitarii commanders are able to process a daunting amount of battlefield data. Each knows the military capabilities of his cohort and those of the foe to an obsessive degree. This savant-like wisdom makes these leaders fearsome foes indeed, for they have often won the battle before the first shot is fired. The Skitarii are fearsome foes, relentless in the pursuit of the Omnissiah's agenda, and equipped with the most advanced weaponry in the Imperium. Ultimately, though, each is but a cybernetic vessel for the will of the tech priests. In the heat of battle, the Skitarii will be remotely controlled by data imperatives that boost their minds and bodies to inhuman levels. These doctrina imperatives are codified to yield the maximum spectra of hard data. At range, the Skitarii benefit from protector imperatives that vastly increase their accuracy, suppressing close-quarter combat drill programs in order to bolster targeting subroutines. Hazard optimization is a gamma protector imperative commanded to bring their range weapons to bear by gamma-level imperatives. The Skitarii stalk forward into firing position, their tech priest masters unwilling to risk full possession of their critical moment. Gently increase each cohort's accuracy to a higher lethality. The gun drill symbiosis is used when the Skitarii blend their souls with the machine spirit of their weaponry until gun and wielder become one. A split second of silence follows as the Skitarii meditate upon sacred firing doctrines. Then the night lights up as deadly accurate firepower crisscrosses the battlefield, scything down the foe wherever they may hide. Binaric omniscience is when the Skitarii finds their minds possessed by blessed binary. The entire battlefield reduces to a series of zeros and ones, through which the casual path to the enemy's demise is clear as day. Ramped in this display of the Omnissiah's might, the Skitarii bullseye the foe with merciless inhuman efficiency. When the enemy closes in, the tech priests controlling each maniple download conquer imperatives that boost the martial subroutines of their Skitarii minions and galvanize them into physical action at the expense of their more elaborate targeting programs. One of these is the Mind State Sector, where the warrior wisdom of ancient and experienced sectors is force-loaded into the Skitarii mind. Each thrilling pulse of data gives them knowledge of the most efficient way to dispatch a foe at close quarters, while retaining a reserve of strength for later use. The Techno-Martyr Concord is when a devotional command spools through the minds of the Skitarii at dizzying speeds, each new imperative driving the warrior of the Omnissiah further into the ranks of the foe. One so compelled will fight with the skills of a true weapon expert, his mind and muscles filling with the boundless energy of the motion force. Hyperaction protocols is when the Skitarii feel the press of an invisible hand upon their mind as the machine god drives them to the assault. They wield blades, goads, and lances with the pinpoint skill of a master sector, making their foes seem clumsy and blunt by comparison. The first Skitarii unit is the Skitarii Vanguard, known informally as the Rad Troopers. They bring the baleful touch of the tech priest to the far corner of the galaxy. They fight in the most inhospitable conditions possible, for over the many civil wars waged by the cult Mechanicus, the Vanguard have learned not only to endure baleful energies, but also to weaponize them. Such a high volume of radiation bleeds outward from the Skitarii Vanguard's war gear, and even to stand nearby is to become weakened and fatigued. For non-Skitarii to be stationed in the same barracks is a death sentence. The Vanguard themselves are theoretically safe inside their war plate,
but on a rare occasion, these warriors unscrew their helmets. The sight of their missing teeth and hairless, sore-pocketed skin tells the awful truth. Though Vanguard troopers' signature rad carbines slowly kill their wielders, their effect upon those struck by their bullets is 100 times worse. Should enough hyper-irradiated shots penetrate its target, the secondary effect of the rad volley becomes amplified to the point where not even a Tyranid could possibly survive. Because of this, the Skitarii Vanguard are assigned to the most hazardous war zones the galaxy can afford. They bear this duty stoically and in solemn silence, fighting to the last in the name of their inhuman god. The vanguard of the Skitarii cohorts are feared throughout the Imperium, for they use the baleful energies of the Forge Worlds as their weapons. Equipped with back generators that bleed potent energy byproduct, these Omnissian martyrs are so saturated in radiation that even to approach them is to succumb to their peculiar curse. Their barrack carbines fill the air around the foe with harmful emanations, corrupting the atmosphere itself, even as they punch hyper-radiated shots into the flesh of their victims. Should their foes survive the worst of the shooting, critical levels of radiation poisoning may still be achieved by the very proximity of the Skitarii Vanguard, who will look on in silent interest as an enemy that thought the worst was over stumbles, chokes, and dies. To fight the foot soldiers of the Cult Mechanicus is to kill or be killed, for the Skitarii Rangers never give up when hunting down their foes, and their stamina is legendary. In the lean and hungry days of man's hominid ancestry, a hunter would kill far larger prey by tracking it to the point of exhaustion. It is this principle by which the Skitarii Rangers hunt the reaches of the galaxy. Once the Rangers have dispatched, they will home in on their quarry at a slow but relentless pace. At first, their victims, ranging from pirate bands to Xenos war hosts, slip the net of Skitarii gunfire easily enough. If they flee far enough, solar months will pass, even standard years, long enough that the terror of the initial engagement is all but unforgettable. All the while, the Skitarii Rangers march in silence, unstoppable lockstep through trenches and ruins, their noose closing a little tighter every night. Just when their quarry assumes itself safe, a constellation of blue will-o'-the-wisps appear on the horizon. Almost unnoticeably, it grows closer and closer, and then darkness lights up with blazing gunfire. The Skitarii, for whom the engagement never ended, close in again and again until the deed is done. Where the tech priests are hunters of knowledge, their Skitarii Rangers are hunters of sentient creatures, the enemies of the Omnissiah in particular. These unstoppable cyborgs do not rest until the bloody deed is done, for they are driven ever onward by the imperative to locate their foes and ensure their destruction. They do this not in drop-pod strike launched above, nor by sudden teleportation into the midst of the enemy, but by stalking their quarry over the course of weeks or even months until it can run no more. Once the designated target is in their crosshair, the air fills with a thump and crackle of galvanized weaponry, even as the Skitarii continue their relentless advance. The stink of electrocuted corpses is never far behind. This is an excerpt from a Skitarii Ranger. Rytrikos Forgrido shivered with religious ecstasy as his brain recalibrated into war mode. The Xenos usurpers were ahead, turning at the forest's mist-shrouded edge and coming in hard on their anti-gravity jet bikes. Less than 6 seconds away, thought Forgrido. Plenty of time. Engage, stagger line, said the Skitarii Alpha. His squad took pre-assigned positions, each ranger's non-spherical aura buzzing with ballistic screeds. Umbilicals of Benheric cant rose invisibly from their antennas to the masters high above, and from there to Holy Mars. It was a humbling thought. At Forgrido's clicking command, his men opened fire. Their bullets ricocheted from Eldar jetbikes in bursts of electricity. The airs filled with hissing discs as the aliens returned fire. Time slowed for Forgrido. his mind turning to a liquid bliss as the Omnissiah's grace flowed through it. With a single bolt of energy from his arc pistol, he turned the incoming stream of disc shurikens to ash. As one, his men raised their rifles, tracked their target for a microsecond, and loosened shots in quick succession. The Eldar riders tumbled smoldering from their saddles, their jet bikes careening wildly away. "Task complete," said Forgrido as he marched onward. The rust stalkers of the Skitarii legions fall upon their foes in a slashing, stabbing frenzy. Their transonic blades blur as they dart and cut like the weapons of gladiator knife fighters. The deadly resonance they transmit bypasses armor, as it is often no more resistant than a hologram. The Rust Stalkers were originally devised as cybernetic assassins sent into the Red Planet's waste to hunt down feral servitors and other undesirables excommunicated from the cult Mechanicus. They proved so effective at their task that they were repurposed and militarized into groups known as Killclades. Since that day, they fought on the front lines of the cult Mechanicus' many wars. The weapons of the Rust Stalkers are the sinister examples of the Adeptus Mechanicus' mastery over the laws of physics. They emanate a strong, sick hum that plays on the soul. When these horrible devices are put to use, their sonic fields swoop across a variety of wavelengths until it finds the right molecular frequency to simply pass through whatever armor their foes are wearing. The gory results, though they take a second or two to manifest, are considered by the tech priests to be well worth the wait. So lethal is their offshoot of sonic technology that the tech priests have refined it into many different forms. These range from stiletto-swift razors to the much-feared cord claw, a needle-fingered gauntlet capable of turning a man's flesh to quivering mulch. Sicarian Rust Stalkers are stick-thin assassins driven to a bitter murder lust by the mutilation of their former lives. Known as shivs to the soldiers of the Astra Militarum due to their shivering, blurring appearance of their transonic weaponry, the Rust Stalkers dart across the battlefield at daunting speeds and fight with a frantic energy. One who witnesses a pack of these metal-limbed killers attack might initially see these blows rain from carapace armor or layered ceramite with transonic shrieks. A few heartbeats later, their enemies suddenly seem to disintegrate, hack limbs from limb in showers of blood, as the kneeing blades of Rust Stalkers locate the armor's resonance frequency, and their wielder howls in triumph. Sicarian infiltrators are perhaps the most sinister of the Skitarii warrior units, for their neurosonic bombardment robs their victims of their senses. When hunting, they emit a white noise that fills the visual, auditory, and even olfactory spectrum with static, leaving their foe all but helpless before the killing begins. Tall and slender, Sicarian infiltrators pick their way across the battlefield with the stilted grace of spear-fisher birds. We're not always this way, for each Sicarian is far from whole, not in spirit nor in body. As with their Rust Stalker brethren, every Sicarian was once a warrior of the Skitarii, who in pursuance of the cult Mechanicus agenda was blasted limb from limb, extensively burned or otherwise dismembered. During the data harvest at battle's end, if these fallen are judged still to fit in the service of the Omnissiah, they are not incinerated but instead taken back to the augmented slabs. There, they are given a new lease on life by the addition of slender but powerful metal limbs. Technically speaking, all the magibiologists require to create a Sicarian is a head, a torso, and some limb stubs, though a detachment from emotion and a knack for inspiring fear is vital for best results. An infiltrator can bypass enemy defenses with ease, though his ability owes nothing to stealth nor skill. Instead, it hinges upon the potency and variety of the disruptive wavelengths they broadcast through their dome helms and jutting antennas. When the infiltrator approach, their prey's every sensory apparatus is bombardment by overwhelming stimuli. Boxcasters howl with anguished feedback, while vid screens crash with fuzzing static. Yet this crippling assault is even more effective upon natural senses than artificial ones. Ears ring with cruel noise, eyes water and turn red, and the taste of burnt metal fills the mouth. It is all the infiltrators' victims can do to remember how to breathe. As their prey clamps hands over bleeding ears and screws shut bloodshot eyes, the Skitarian infiltrators simply walk into point-blank range and open fire. This sensory assault, though broad in spectrum, is calibrated precisely by the tech priest sanctioning the dispatch of these assassins. Those Skitarii sent to fight alongside the infiltrators are given null codes that transmute these frequencies used into harmless song. To them, the constant barrage of neural static coming from each domed helm is nothing more than a soft psalm to the Omnissiah's glory. For this reason, the infiltrators are seen as wise and holy heroes by their Skitarii brethren, talismans against data corruption that fight a selfless war on the front line. Only to the enemies is the truth revealed. There is little virtue left inside these merciless prowlers, and what personality remains is interested only in death. During the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, Protectors were a type of Skitarii comprised of genetically enhanced humans drawn from the Adeptus Mechanicus menial underclass, who served as the personal bodyguards, law enforcement officers, and fighting force for the high-ranking adepts of the Mechanicus. They were often tied to the service of a specific Forge city on Mars, or one of the other Forge worlds. They differed from the standard Skitarii in several small ways, most notably because their faces were covered by a bronze skull mask with glowing green eyes, and they were dressed in red robes, the color of old rust. They were noted to smell of spoiled meat and machine oil. It is not known if this type of Skitarii is still utilized by the modern-era Adeptus Mechanicus. Synodian dragoons stride the battlefield like graven idols given life, charging from clouds of sacred incense to slam crackling taser lances into the scattering foe. In their wake, they leave the ragged trail of corpses that stretch to the horizon and beyond. Mounted on the marvel of science that is the Iron Strider engine, the Sidonian dragoons know not of the concept of doubt nor rest. Theirs is the power of endless motion, put to the purpose of death. First, Sidonians settled a vast cratered area of Mars swats in dense acidic mist. In the schism that haunted Mars's past, those with stilt augmentation could stalk these mists and yet live, their elevation allowing them to escape the worst effects of the acidic fog while remaining hidden from their enemy. Sidonian dragoons echo the tactics of these warrior explorers. Using incest exhaust, they march through the clouds, reminiscent of ancient Sidonia. Many a foe had been confounded by the mist long enough for dragoons to mount a deadly charge. Though the monotask servitor that steers each Iron Strider engine toward the foe is all but mindless, its rider is a tried and tested Skitarii warrior. Once the dragoon has spotted his quarry, he will mark it with a bullet from his phosphorus serpenta, or radium jazael. The glow from the impact guides his unit's next charge, even in the fog of war. Within moments, one so marked is assailed by the stampede of titanium hard feet and high-yield taser weaponry. The distinctive shape of the Iron Strider Ballistari strikes fear into the heart of Xenos, renegade and Imperial commanders alike. Marksmen beyond compare, the Ballistari have at their command the atomical data, defensive capabilities, and weakness of every race the Adeptus Mechanicus has encountered. Tirelessly searching the galaxy for high-valued targets alongside their Skitarii Ranger escorts, the Ballistari stalk from the Orch mists with their Oculus lens flaring. All under the azure beam of their Omnispecs is to have but a heartbeat left to live. For a Ballistaria sniper, making a killing shot is as easy and as natural as drawing breath. Iron Strider Ballistari are mounted upon the same long-legged combat walkers as their Sidonian Dragoon counterparts, able to walk the most hostile of terrain for years on end without rest. The monotask servitor charged with the duty of steering the Iron Strider is often the first component to fail, its long-suffering body finally wheezing its last breath. Upon such occasion, the Iron Strider will keep pacing out into the lands on its last heading. It could only be repaired by a tech priest who would remove the dead flesh and install a replacement even as the engine walks on. The Strider will later be returned to duty as if nothing had happened. The remains of the former incubated cast into the dust without comment. When a squadron of Iron Strider Ballisteri are near a war zone, the sum total of the Adeptus Mechanicus knowledge about the enemy's leader figures is downlinked into their databanks. Targeting protocol flickers and data geist glow, each searching for 1,000 different iterations of the enemy commander's form silhouette. When a positive ID is achieved, that Ballisterius will be rewarded with a chime of brass bells and a dump of hyperfocus stimulants. The information is quickly shared with the Hunter Squadron, and the Iron Strider engines, formerly pounding across the battlefield at a fearsome pace, will slow to an exaggerated stalk. For a Sidonian Dragoon to attempt this would risk his steed toppling, but the gyroscopic stabilizers attached to each Ballisterius Iron Strider engine compensate. This gives the appearance that time has slowed down around the squadron as it lopes on a spot or creeps forward with grace. It is from this mobile but steadily platform that the gunner takes his shot. With the power of Cognis heavy weaponry at his fingertips and the enemy's weak spots under his crosshair, a Ballistarius could shoot through the hull of the enemy tank and still hit the vehicle's commander in the eye socket. Though it would never even occur to the Ballisteri to boast of such kills, their tech priest masters ensure their deadly accuracy is well known across the Imperium.
And those were 40 facts on the Skitarii. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your friends and thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. But with that said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Oh, I used to put my